All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. I am BMillzebub, and welcome to the first ever Seven Princes live stream, where we will talk about atheist community issues, social issues, or just whatever the hell we feel like talking about tonight. And if you're wondering, the name of the program is kind of a nod to a lot of religious people think atheists worship the devil, so I figure, hey, let's have let's have a monthly live show where each guest names themselves after a different prince of hell. So let's go. Let's introduce tonight's princes, shall we? So tonight we have Luciano Gonzales, who has picked the name Belphegor, and he is the Prince of Sloth. So, Luciano, introduce yourself a little bit in your channel.
Hey fam, I do lots of thumbs up and finger guns, so if you see me on camera, you're going to be seeing a lot of very expressive hands. I am an asexual atheist. I currently live and work in Washington, D.C. I uploaded a video today talking about Pride and what it's like being an asexual person during Pride. Super cool. And I'm here to talk about probably mostly queer stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
All right. And where can we all find you on YouTube?
So I run Luciano's Logic. I say my name, I guess, the correct way. I don't care if other people do, as long as I know what people call me. In this channel, I guess I'm Belphegor, and since I'm the Demon Lord of Sloth, it's kind of fitting that I don't say my name fully. Very in character.
It works. All right. And the next prince we have is Mrs. Snarky, who has chosen the name Lucifer, who is also the Prince of Pride. So, Snarky, tell us a bit about yourself and where we can find you on YouTube.
Well, I'm Lucifer, the Morning Star, of course. And I can be found at Mrs. Snarky on Twitter and Mrs. Snarky the channel. I talk about philosophy and whatever the hell else I'm thinking about at the time. And I promise I'll be making a video soon. Promise. I'm also on our last nerve, which is later on tonight on Objectively Subjective's channel. It's really hard for me to say, but I am very proud of it, and I'm also excited for Pride Month. Woo!
Yeah.
All right. I really liked your show, by the way, the Lucifer show. It was really good, but you look nothing like the dude who was in the show. So,
well, I've had a little work done, some wigs and stuff.
That'll do
it. Yeah.
All right. And finally, last but not least, we have the Bible Belt Atheist, who has chosen the name Satan and is the Prince of Wrath. So, BBA, tell us a little bit about yourself and where we can find you on YouTube.
They're currently indisposed, so.
Ruh-roh.
Womp, womp, womp.
You're bucking the system here, BBA.
I mean, we're chaotic, evil lords of hell, so.
This is true. He's kind of screwing up my system, though. It's not helpful. It's all right, though. You can actually find him at the Bible Belt Atheist on YouTube. It's actually really easy. He's already in the side chat, so just click the three little dots next to his comment, go to his channel, click subscribe. In fact, everybody in here right now has been talking in the side chat, so click those three little dots, go to their channel, and subscribe to all of them. They make fucking fantastic content.
Oh,
although
thank
Snarky
you.
has been a little bit MIA lately.
Yeah. Sorry, y'all. I has the depression.
Oh, our friend is back. Do you wanna say hi?
Hey.
All right, BBA, yes. Introduce yourself a little bit and where they can find you on YouTube, even though I've done the second thing for you.
Well, yeah, you already kind of covered that, so. Get out of here, god damn it. I just got food. So,
oh, okay. I'm leaving.
No, I just got food, so that's why I had to turn the camera off. So, basically, I just talk about science Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, I forgot I can mute my mic as well. So, anyways, this is horrible. I basically I just talk about science, religion, politics, and atheism on my channel, along with a few here and there off-topic videos and live streams, including one that I have on my social media right now that's a poll basically asking everybody if y'all want me to do a high school graduation celebration party, live stream, whatever. So far the poll is looking towards yes, but that could change at any moment, so I'm not going to say anything until the poll is up. But yeah, that's about, since BMillzebub already covered where I'm at, then I guess I don't need to cover that.
Right on. So, we don't have all of the princes in here tonight, but eventually we will. And I actually plan on introducing everyone every time anyway. So, you know, that's not a bad thing, I don't think. But let's get into the topics that we want to talk about. Snarky and Luciano, Lucifer and Belphegor. You both had topics that you really wanted to talk about, so who wants to go first?
You want to go first, my fellow prince? I guess princess. This is a gender-neutral place.
Hey, I am the queen, okay? So, recently, at least since September, we've had 6 migrant children die at the U.S. border while in custody. And it's absolutely atrocious to me because, first of all, a lot of these children, these deaths could have been avoided. So a lot of it has to do with how they're treated once in custody. A lot of them die of things such as, you know, illness or dehydration from having migrated from places as far as Guatemala. So my main issue with this is, like, what can we do about this? There has to be someone that is held accountable. And of course, Kirsten, what's-her-face, Nielsen, has left her appointment. I'm sorry, I keep hearing myself, so it's kind of like driving me bonkers. But yeah, she's left her post. So who do we hold accountable for all of this? You know, these are people that are fleeing a situation that is risking their lives. So they're just trying to find safety, and we have asylum. Like, we can offer them asylum, but they're being turned away at the border a lot of times. And if they are taken into custody, children are taken away from their parents and placed in cages. I mean, this is just, it's outrageous. And I think as Lucifer, you know, the evil one, I think we should do something about this. I mean, I don't know exactly what, because I don't know how the process works. And I was kind of hoping that Luciano could help me with that.
I actually can. So right now, for the most recent deaths, if you feel the need to blame them on someone, which if you ask me is not necessarily the most productive way to go about this, but if that's something that helps you sleep at night, if that's something that helps you feel like your activism has a purpose, then the person you should be aiming your ire at, there's 2 big people. There's Kristen Nielsen, who I totally butchered her last name, Kristen Nielsen, and Thomas Human. And Thomas Human is the current, I believe he's the current acting director of U.S. immigrations. I'm going to do a super quick fact check on this. Yeah, as of right now, I'm triple checking myself. I want to be 100% sure. I might be wrong, but those are the people that we should be aiming our ire at. I lived in Honduras for a significant period of time. I am a military brat. I was raised in Latin America. I have seen the conditions that people there are fleeing. I was lucky enough that I didn't have to live those conditions because being an American affords you a certain level of privilege, as does having a family member who's a diplomat. And I was really lucky. But right now, Honduras is currently a dictatorship. and it's one of the main countries that people are fleeing from. It's really important, if we want to talk about this conversation in like a wider way, that we actually understand what's going on in Honduras. Honduras is not only a dictatorship, it's also a narco state.
Yes.
And that is currently being demonstrated by the fact that the president of Honduras is being investigated, or at the very least was being investigated. It looks like he was being investigated for connections to drug crimes. And the last president of Honduras had a son who was arrested in Haiti for drug dealing. And they're both members of the same party. They both hate the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was what made it so that people in Honduras could be elected to be president more than once. And this is stuff that a lot of people who don't know about Central America don't know. I'm a historian, and it's my actual area of specialty, modern Central American history. So I not only lived the period that enabled the dictatorship to rise, because I was there from 2009 up until 2013, but I also got to see a whole ton of stuff that was going on. And this is something that I feel very strongly about. I've written about it significantly, but I also don't want this to be like the only thing we talk about. So
Yeah, I mean, as far as like, it's not so much that I just want to point a finger and blame somebody. I want them to actually be held accountable. I mean, just for the precedent, you know, for the rule of law and order and whatnot. I mean, because if this happens again, it's going to be just as bad, if not worse. And there has to be some kind of level of accountability. And I don't know, it's just really frustrating to me that nothing is being done. You know?
I understand that. I think that on a personal level, the most important things we can do are either run for office as humanists or help people who, even if they're not humanists, at the very least care about actual human beings to office. Because the reality is ICE is a federal agency. It's a part of the Department of Homeland Security. There's not that much that we can do to combat ICE. Something that we can do is we can elect politicians who care about making their areas into sanctuary areas. We can read up on things like 287G agreements. I lived in North Carolina for a while. I work with North Carolina politicians who care about this issue. I write press statements and I do work in immigration. I also share the work of other people who do work in immigration. It's a really difficult thing, and I appreciate that there are people here who want to do something. It's just unfortunate that us doing something, this isn't something that normal people can do much about.
Right. But we can't, like you said, though, we can support or run for. I can't run for office. I have no expertise whatsoever. And, yeah.
Neither does the president.
They'd be like,
yeah, I was about to say, like, that's not exactly a disqualifying characteristic anymore.
President's. They'd be like, President's snarky? No. But,
I mean, I'd vote for a president snarky.
Yay! But I mean, I think the most that I can do is, you know, like I've written to my representatives. I've kept an eye on this for a while, and of course it's been driving me absolutely bonkers. But I do agree with you that the most direct action we can take is to support people that do want to change policy and don't want to see this happen again.
Yeah.
So, good advice.
Yeah. I mean, the problems at the border have been going on for literally the entire Trump administration. And correct me if I'm wrong, these 6 deaths are the first, at least, deaths of children at our border in, I guess you could call them detention facilities, in 10 years. I recall reading something about that. Am I wrong?
I would have to do...
Since 2010, no migrant children have died in federal custody.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, because I got it like pulled up just for reference. So, yeah.
Like, the way that we talk about this is like very specific. So like, I'm inclined to say that this is the case. And if it's somewhere in like an official source, if you're like reading like the New York Times or something, then it's probably like accurate. That checks out in my mind. I would be interested in reading like the specific source, but because the way we talk about these issues is so very specific, it's difficult to say that like this is the first in this period of time, which is one of the difficulties that a lot of Hispanic and Latinx folks have to deal with when we talk about these issues. So yeah.
Yeah, the source that I'm using right now is BBC World News.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, usually they're pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just a lot of these people. I really don't understand why we can't just let them have asylum. I mean, it's legal for them to do so, and they're just being turned away. And Christian Nielsen's like, no, we're not turning people away. And their representatives are like, I have camera footage where I went to the border and I saw them turn people away. So you can't tell me that's the case. And it's just been a whole awful situation.
Yeah.
Just the lies and the cover-ups and the deaths and the atrocities, the trauma that they've put these kids through, and the parents as well, it's going to last a lifetime. I mean, there are children that don't even, when they are reunited with their families, they don't even recognize their parents, and some of them aren't even speaking. They're so traumatized. This cannot stand. Anyway.
It's a shitty situation overall.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to think about what would have happened to me in the Air Force if I turned away an asylum seeker, because I was taught the protocol to do that. And if it would have been found out that I turned away someone who was seeking asylum, I would have been screwed so hard with my pants on that a dishonorable discharge, meaning my entire future is just obliterated.
Right.
Yeah, and it's actually happening at our border, and there seems to be zero consequences.
Right.
You know, I mean, military bases abroad have this asylum process and protocol, but, you know, the people at the border don't seem to give the first flying fuck about it, and it's really messed up. You know, no one should ever be able to get away with anything like this. It is actually a crime, but criminal charges should have to apply to everyone who does it. I don't care if asylum centers are getting overwhelmed. If someone comes asking for asylum to the country that loves to call itself the beacon of hope and prosperity, it's a problem if you turn people away from that who are seeking asylum for, frankly, drug wars that we have been the main cause of.
Oh, preach! Oh my God! Exactly.
Part of it is that people don't understand the asylum process. People don't understand that there's different types of asylum, that you can actually come to this country without documentation, and then you can apply for asylum. That's what a lot of people think of when they think of asylum. But that's not the most, I'm not going to say that that's not the most common type of asylum, but that's one of a range of different types. There's also temporary statuses that people can have. People have a little bit of a better understanding of things like temporary protected status, but even then, people don't fully understand these things. And it's because these are complex things that our society has codified us into thinking only apply to people like me, people who are Hispanic, people who are Latin American. And the reality is something I wrote about the show Superstore a while back because they had an episode that was a very mixed bag because one of the characters gets deported and he's an undocumented immigrant. He's Asian and he came over here as a baby and he didn't realize that he was undocumented until he started working at the store. And that's something that actually does happen to people. And also being undocumented is a thing that can happen to people of all sorts of nationalities and all sorts of different citizenships from different countries. We're codified to think of these issues as being a very white or Hispanic issue, when in actuality, it's a lot more complex than that. But if we think about it in more complex ways, then we have to admit that the world isn't black and white.
Yeah, indeed. And these are very complex issues. And with so many different nationalities, of course, it gets even deeper and more complicated, especially with all the different situations that are going on in the world. But to me, it's like these individuals who do work at the border, they're working under orders, right? I mean, and if their order is to turn these people away, then they're not doing anything illegal. And that's what really just baffles
There
me.
actually is such a thing as unlawful orders.
Yeah?
Yeah, no. If you're ordered to do something that is contrary to the rule of law, that's an unlawful order. So when Trump told military members that they could shoot people at the border for just throwing rocks at them, that was an unlawful order. It is unlawful to use lethal force against someone who is not themselves using lethal force against you.
Oh.
It can't legally be done. So unlawful order.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you.
I work with and study the military. My actual, like, I'm a graduate student, for those of you who don't know. I'm studying peace and conflict studies, and I'm studying two different things. I'm studying extremism and how to combat it, and I'm also studying how it is that military institutions interact with civilian institutions, which is a very specific thing. I'm not, like, trying to get a master's degree just so I can get, like, any job because I have a master's. I have, like, a specific career track I want to go on to. And one of the things that I've studied is the military. I learn about the military's command structure. I also understand, not only because I'm living on a military base right now, my family who are military, but because, like, I've lived in a military family. My mom and dad are both, my mom is a veteran, she left the military, and my dad is still in the service. And I've seen how being in a military space sort of influences people. And people have all sorts of really bad ideas about, like, what it's like being in the military that I really don't like. It's something that frustrates me as a progressive, because lots of progressives are very, not only anti-military, which is probably the right thing, but also anti, like, soldier, which is very destructive and harmful.
Yeah.
And it's really bad. And I'm sure that, like, actual veterans and people who've been through the service, like BMillzebub, can actually talk about that a lot more intelligently than I can. But I've seen this, and it's really frustrating for me.
Yeah, and I admit straight up, I'm pretty ignorant in terms of, you know, how the military functions and things like that. But, like, my grandfather was in the Army, and I had an uncle that was in the Air Force, and that's about the extent that I know. Which isn't much, but it's good to have people that are knowledgeable about this to discuss it. And we need you, Luciano. You get that specialized degree and you save the world. Seriously, with the extremism that's going around right now, we definitely need people that are specialized in that.
I agree with what Chrismer just said in the chat. Chrismer said that they're progressive, but that they feel that we do need the military, just not at the size it currently is, and how many wars we're currently fighting. Definitely agree with that, 100%.
Yeah.
I also feel like most soldiers that I know of also agree with, at the very least, that general statement.
Yeah, I mean, the military absolutely is a necessity. And I've said this before, we could have our overseas military bases, and I have good news for everybody. We are still the only globally deployable military force in the world. We're it. No one else can do it because we have bases everywhere, except like China and Russia. But other than that, we have them everywhere. We have bases all over, obviously, our country, Japan, South Korea, Africa. There's a shitload of military bases there, and there's even more military bases in Europe. And if we halved our international military bases, one, we'd still be the only globally deployable force in the world, capable of getting literally anywhere in a matter of 24 hours. And we'd spend a lot less money paying other governments to have a base there. Yeah,
I mean, like, sorry, go on.
Like, take where I was stationed, for example. I was stationed at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, and it's kind of like the European hub base. Pretty much everybody that is deploying to the Middle East goes through Ramstein. It's the big central base for everything. But just like 5 or 10 miles away, there's another military or another Air Force base called Vogelway Air Base. And that's where the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center is, which is the military hospital that all wounded service members go to eventually, before they go home. And we could easily close down Vogelway, and we'd probably have to expand on Ramstein a little bit, or just use the BX that closed there several years ago for the medical center, where we actually send our wounded troops. That way they don't have to go from an uncomfortable plane ride to an uncomfortable bus ride to a military base. And in that way we'd save money too. I mean, it's small pennies here and there, but eventually that'll add up too.
Yeah. And I just want to say that, when you say Rammstein, all that goes through my head is Du hast. But it is very important that we maintain some of these places, especially in terms of the medical help that a lot of the troops need to receive. So, and the upkeep of all those is very important. Just as it's very important to keep our embassies well secured and things like that. We don't want another Benghazi. But yeah. Anyways, I think it's interesting that we're the only country that has access like that. It's also, especially when you consider all the conflicts that are going on in the world, and how we just kind of dominate things. And what makes us determine when to, turn a blind eye to certain things and when to engage?
That's capitalism.
That's mainly, mainly, it seems like it's only when it's in our capitalistic interests that we go in and we interfere in things, because the whole events in Sri Lanka happened for like 30 years, and that was awful. That was atrocious, and even the UN had to flee. So they don't even have evidence at this point to hold anyone accountable for basically the genocides of civilians that occurred there. And that's another thing that outrages me, is that we have things like this occur in the world, and it's like, well, I guess we'll just die. I mean, I don't know.
I think it would actually be kind of cool if someone hosted like a live stream where like the veterans who are secular content creators actually got together. I've proposed that a range of different groups create humanistic like affiliates that talk specifically about veterans issues, because Robert X brought up in the comments, as soon as these troops get back to the United States, they're treated like garbage again by the government, which is true. And this is such a almost comically bipartisan thing, and it sucks because politicians love to give lip service to veterans. But if you're an actual veteran, I have so many friends who are veterans, and I have family members who are veterans who've just been discarded by the government pretty much as soon as they get out, even if in some cases they actually were able to get their pension, which my understanding is you get if you serve for 20 years or longer in the military. That's the way that I understood it. That's the way my family talks about it. I'm not going to say that that's like super accurate because I don't know, but that's the way that I've been told that. And I've been told by folks that that's either not enough or like they've been screwed by the VA. And it's a really frustrating thing to hear people talk about because people gave their lives serving for something higher than themselves. People join the military for a range of reasons. And sure, some people join the military to escape poverty. I almost joined the military when I was younger, but I was lucky. I was able to go to college through a GI Bill because of my family. So I didn't have to do that.
Yay, GI Bill. That is one thing, too, that bugs the shit out of me, is they only care about the vets when they can use them as a token. But whenever some kind of technical thing occurs and they don't get their money, oh, well, I guess they just won't get their money. We fixed it now, so... Y'all remember when that happened? I think it was, like, California, something went wrong with the system and they weren't getting paid.
During government shutdowns, people who rely on the GI Bill actually don't get the GI Bill, which is something I didn't know until I was going to college. I had just started college when there was the government shutdown in 2013, and they were like, hey, if this continues a few days longer, you're just going to miss out on your first month of payment. And that was my first month in college. That was terrifying, y'all.
Oh, my God, I bet it was.
Well, here's another perspective for you, right? Because a lot of times when the government shuts down, it's the military that gets hit really hard by it. And while I was serving over in Germany in 2010, the government shut down for like a month and I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So that meant that, if I didn't have a little money in my bank account, I did, fortunately, I wasn't going to eat. Because there's no money going into the military. There's money always going into the military, but there's no money going into our pockets. Fortunately, I had a really awesome supervisor that told all of us that he would be more than happy to lend us some money while the government was shut down so we could eat. But, you think about how lucky I was in that I had a good boss, but you also have to consider how a lot of people in the military aren't lucky and have a shit boss.
Right.
That wouldn't turn around and do that same thing.
Yeah, but those politicians that shut the damn government down, they're getting paid.
Oh, they're definitely getting paid. Are you kidding me? Don't stop.
Right? It just infuriates me.
I gotta say, as much as I might hate my civics teacher and no matter how much of a fucking right wing that he is, I have to agree with something that he said during one of my classes one day. It's that during these government shutdowns, nobody else is getting paid, but the politicians are getting paid. So why not cut the politician's salary to try and help, cut down on the time of this government shutdown?
Mm-hmm.
In fairness, multiple politicians, including conservatives, actually tried to do that during this most recent government shutdown. A good number of them also donated their salaries because it's very much a problem that somehow they continue to get paid, but it's not exactly their choice. It is their choice to shut down the government, and we should absolutely eviscerate them for that.
Yeah.
But we should also probably give them credit where credit's due, at the very least in the context of like, hey, we're sucky at our jobs. We're bad at what we do, but we're not going to sit here while lots of people starve because of our differences. I think it's so frustrating. And one of the only examples of an automatic continuing resolution, which is something that enables a government agency to continue to get money during a government shutdown, was passed in 2013 as a way to make sure that at the very least the military continue to get funded. I think technically it was like, hey, if this government shutdown continues long enough, soldiers will also get their pay, but I can't remember the exact text of the bill. I'd have to look it up to be able to remember exactly what it says.
Well, Luciano, I just want to say, how dare you be so reasonable and poised when I want to smash?
Sometimes we need nuance, and sometimes we need a revolution.
Well, call me when you need to smash.
Right.
I feel like that's going to be misconstrued. It's the internet.
Yeah, well, you know.
It will be. In fact, someone
Giggity.
will almost certainly put that up on Twitter as an out of context quote.
Hey, I think for the record, I just want to say, since I'm Lucifer and my thing is pride, I'm very proud of myself for not having a bunch of innuendos so far. Just saying.
I'm the demon lord of sloth, so for me, I'm also asexual, so I'm not in the habit of making like innuendos, but I'm just gonna say that I'm too lazy to come up with innuendos. That's the canon excuse I'm gonna go with.
Oh, you do make accidental innuendos. Those
I
count.
feel like everyone does.
It's a Freudian slip. That's what it is.
All right. So I kind of want to move on a little bit. BBA, did you have a topic you wanted to bring to the table, or?
Well, I guess I know somebody had said about the abortion ban. I mean, I'm going to be doing this Sunday, at least I'm planning on this Sunday, doing a putting up a video, basically a rant from my end of this whole thing with the pretty much the wildfire that's been spreading with banning abortion, trying to overturn the Roe v. Wade. And, you know, it personally, it really pisses me off, obviously. But, you know, the thing is, though, is that I understand why they're trying to do it, or why they're doing the abortion bans now, because they have a 5-4 in the Supreme Court of conservatives to liberals.
Yeah.
So, you know, if what is it, the I can't remember the acronym, but the Civil Liberties Union,
ACLU.
if you know, if they take one of these abortion cases to the Supreme Court, then Roe v. Wade's more than likely going to get overturned. And
I mean, I kind of want to talk about the whole. I want to talk about the whole abortion thing too, but I think we're gonna save that for last. So, Luciano, what is it you wanted to talk about today?
So there is a Vox Media person named Carlos Massa who recently highlighted the fact that one of his conservative counterparts, a man by the name of Steven Crowder, who, now that I've said his name, odds are people will know. Odds are people know a little bit of what I'm talking about. I tweeted about this earlier today. A couple of other folks in the secular sphere who follow Carlos also tweeted about it. I think Godless Cranium was one of the other voices who mentioned it earlier today. And what's going on is Steven Crowder is a homophobic piece of garbage who is a conservative. That's not the issue. No one should really care about that. But as a conservative, he responds to Vox, which is a very left-leaning news outlet. He particularly enjoys responding to Vox Media's Strike Through, which is a series run by Carlos Massa, who is a gay Latino atheist, which is just the worst thing in the world you could be if you are an American or a Canadian conservative, because Steven Crowder is Canadian, in case y'all didn't know that. And after every single Strike Through video, I'm pretty sure, like, at the very least 90% of them. Also, yes, blame Canada. Darn it, Godless Cranium, get your people together.
They're not even a real country.
Put the real down and deal with this guy.
I get that you guys have Trudeau and he's pretty cool most of the time, but get your stuff together. I like how I'm like pointing north. And what's going on is that Carlos Massa made a video, he edited a video where he showed all the cases, not all the cases, but a good number of the cases where Steven Crowder said homophobic stuff. It's one of the most recent tweets if you guys go follow him on Twitter. I'll see if I can put up a link in the comments section in just a second. And I'm mostly just here raising awareness of this because this is a thing that like Fox News does as well, where they use like homophobic language, and instead of actually dealing with like the substance of the arguments, they're just like, hey, you're gay, gay is bad.
Gay is not bad, gay is happy.
Also, I want to talk about the abortion ban too, so I really sped through that. But if anyone wants to talk about it, I'm a queer person. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only queer person in this chat, but I might be wrong. This is a big deal, and I do feel like people should be talking about it. It sucks that like a news person is having to deal with an endless amount of homophobic bullshit. And it's regular. I'm a queer news person. I deal with ace-phobic language pretty often, although I usually the comments that show that on my channel get marked as like spam, and I'll usually let them through, but I don't always, because sometimes they're like really offensive and not just like, haha, ace people aren't real. They're like people wanting to say stuff about like conversion therapy for ace folks, which is horrifying, and that's a thing that happens to some ace folks, as well as corrective sexual assault, which is holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah. How can you even put those two words together, by the way?
I mean, that's what people have told me, so...
Oh, that's disgusting.
I mean, it's like corrective rape. Those are concepts that don't belong in the same sentence, other than to say they don't belong together.
Yeah, just like the whole consensual rape thing.
Oh.
Yeah, that was horrible.
That's one thing that tends to happen whenever you're in a marginalized group. You'll get these edgelord sumbitches who just want to bully you to silence you. Excuse me. But, I mean, that's one thing that we can't allow is we can't allow them to silence us. And I'm pansexual, so I guess that counts as in the queer sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the method. It's easy to get clicks from hate. And I absolutely abhor having to say that. But it seems to be very profitable these days to hate on minorities in any sense, in any vulnerable group.
Yeah.
That alt-right money is just too damn tempting.
YouTube really needs to like clean up its systems, because like YouTube has long been a vessel for radicalization. And there's some people who do this. There's some people who enable like the sort of radicalization engine on YouTube, genuinely, perhaps without meaning to. These are people like I'm trying to remember her name. She's a conservative commentator, millennial something. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. She had an interview with one of those white supremacists a couple of weeks ago, and like people gave her trash for it, which was the right thing to do. But she was like, "Oh, he's not a white supremacist. He's a concerned parent or whatever."
Oh my God.
Ethan Molyneux, who was it that interviewed her a few weeks ago? I can't remember her name. People know who I'm talking about. Thank you, Chrismer.
Oh,
Garbage human being. Not Chrismer, roaming millennial. Dumpster fire of a person. I follow her on Twitter. She's one of the only conservatives who like does that sort of thing that I follow, because I'm just like, this is a person with enough of a platform that I probably should pay attention to what she's saying. She's also young enough that like the fact that she's a conservative is appealing to people, and it's something that like makes people want to follow her. I made videos I never uploaded where I talked about her stuff, but one of my favorite YouTube people who's also an atheist and a Latina person is Maya Morena, and she did a video response that was really, really solid a couple of months ago to Roaming Millennial. So
and this is a situation that I've spoken out about before with other platforms, is you don't invite white supremacists on your platform. Just don't do it. Don't give them a voice. Don't. They have their own platforms. And most of them are being shut down. Thankfully, finally, don't let this hate spread. And you are responsible for your platform. You are. Don't give me this, I can't help what my audience does. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can moderate your chat. You can actually ban certain words from being said in your comments section. And you can also monitor that. So don't give me... And another thing that you can do is present the type of content that will attract a good audience. If you're having white supremacists on your channel, it's not going to attract a good audience. You're going to get white supremacists coming in there to say hi and something about the Jews or women or whatever. Don't do it. Anyway, rant over.
You're going to have to make a video showing us how to ban certain words in our comment section, because I have no clue how to do that.
I know how to do that. It's not a difficult thing to do, but like you have to be willing to explore YouTube. And ever since YouTube started like messing around with like its little studio thing, YouTube Studio, I want to like the new studio update, but like they rolled it out before it had like anything. I wanted to schedule a live stream the other day. I'm doing a live stream talking about like the asexual spectrum tomorrow in case anyone wants to come on over to that. But like I had to switch my like studio setup. I had to go back to the old one because they're like, hey, we're going to roll out this new update and we're not going to like have anything in it. So if you want to do live streams, you have to go back to the old one.
Actually, you can do live streams from the studio. I figured that out, but it takes a little bit of digging to kind of figure out where it is.
I would love to learn how to do that because I tried and I had to switch back to the old studio before I could set up my most recent live streams.
I am classic YouTube Studio for life. I don't like change.
You're a classic content studio until YouTube does away with it permanently.
No,
which is coming like
I miss the old Miss Snarky. That's what I miss.
The old Miss Snarky. I have to get my old crown.
Before we end tonight, and I think we're going to go a little over because the abortion topic is a pretty huge one. Let's get into that. All right, let's talk about the numerous abortion bans going on in the States, and I kind of want to start with my home state, talking about HB 182, and a little, what seems to me to be a little known thing that's found in it. And what you find in the House bill is that there are sections that tell what insurance companies, why am I blanking on such a simple, regularly used word? They tell insurance companies that they must not provide specifically female contraceptive care.
Oh, that's right. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the Ohio anti-contraception nonsense. Yeah,
that is wrapped up into HB 182, which is also the abortion ban.
That is so freaking foolish.
Yeah. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to put in the side chat a link to Scientist Mel's live stream that she did a week ago, because it is so far the best conversation that I've seen on YouTube relating to the abortion topic. And that's partly because she herself is a scientist, so she learns herself pretty good before she talks about something. She also had an OBGYN on her show and 2 lawyers.
Yeah.
So she had one hell of a live stream a week ago. So
yeah, that stream was lit.
Yeah, it's in the chat. So everyone, after this is over, go watch that because it was ridiculously well done.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big thing that not a lot of people seem to be talking about, is that wrapped up in this already abominable bill is yet another swing at women, saying that they now have to pay more out of pocket for their contraceptive care. And because I know someone out there watching this might eventually be like, oh, but men have to pay for condoms. Tough fucking tits. It's $10 for like a dozen pack of condoms. It's not really that bad. But for women, if they want to get like an IUD or something like that, they're going to have to pay even more out of pocket now because insurance companies are being commanded to not support that, to not cover that.
Yeah. Another thing, too, is birth control isn't just used for birth control. It's also used to regulate periods, and it also is a treatment for people who have endometriosis. So it's a medical issue when we're talking about birth control. And also, if you have any kind of hormonal imbalance or anything like that, it also helps with that. So it's almost as if these people hate any human being that has a uterus. It's like, what the hell?
There's also the reality that this sort of legislation, I'm going to talk about North Carolina's recent abortion legislation, which is actually tied into the immigration discussion we were having earlier because of politics that are specific to North Carolina. But there's the reality that what they're trying to do is they're trying to limit access to abortion while increasing the number of abortions that are going to happen in Ohio. And it's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place and then immediately being squished by the rock into the hard place. That's basically what they're doing. It's a devastating piece of legislation.
Yeah, too. And something else that I wanted to bring up about this issue is, what about trans men? You know, people that are suffering through dysphoria aren't going to have access to something that helps them deal with that. That's another thing that really ticks me off about this as well. And they've made it quite clear that their aim is to take this to the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. Very clear.
You know, and I don't know how many people watching this caught my sex ed video that I did with Laura Lulu, who also is actually one of the princes. And which one is she? She is Asmodeus, which is the Prince of Lust. She's not on tonight, but will be eventually. We did a video for sex education talking about female sexual and reproductive health, which got me flagged for all sorts of reasons because YouTube doesn't like videos talking about sexual health. I don't know why, because it's a good thing to spread, actual good information.
Spread it.
But we briefly covered trans men, and Laura said that it's a good idea for them to keep seeing an OB for reasons I can't quite remember because my memory sucks in a really big way. But because they still maintain certain health risks, they need to continue seeing an OB, as unfortunately dysphoric that can make someone. For health reasons, it's a good idea to continue. So, how badly are these pieces of legislation going to affect those people?
Very badly. And another thing, too, is if they don't have access to reproductive health, a lot of times if they're taking any kind of hormones, that can put them at risk for certain... trying to think of a good way of putting this. They need to definitely get those exams because their risk of cancer, the risk of things going wrong can arise just because of the hormone treatment. As far as I know, I don't know a whole lot about this, but I do know that it's important to keep that monitored. And it's definitely one of the main things that I think trans men would have to keep an eye on, especially dealing with dysphoria.
Well, you could also, in a not the same way, but in a very similar way, you could say pretty much the same thing for male to female trans people who are going through the transitioning period. Like, how are they going to get some of their hormonal treatments and some of the other... I don't know about the transitioning period since, I'm not a trans person. I'm heterosexual completely, but I don't know a whole lot about the transitioning period, but it kind of goes into it, because if they're banning all these, or trying to ban all these contraceptives and abortion and all of this, and how are either end of male to female or female to male trans people going to get their treatments?
Yeah, the HRT, the hormone replacement therapy. I don't know how that would tie into this, but it's definitely a good point to bring up.
Eventually, that's what they're going to try to do. They ultimately do want, they want society to be heterosexual and cisgendered. And society is not, nor has it ever been, heterosexual and cisgendered.
Right?
Trans people have existed in some form or another, and gender non-binary people have existed in some form or another for literally thousands of years. This is not a new topic. Any historian of gender or sexuality will confirm what I said. I know this because in Latin America, lots of indigenous tribes had no issues with people. They had two-spirit people, which is one of the big examples that people think of when they think of gender non-binary and trans folks among Native American communities. But they also had lots of other things. It was fairly common for people to have multiple wives. It was fairly common for people to have like familial relations, not among people who are actually related, but among people who married and among people who joined non-conventional families. All of this stuff is fairly normal and it's existed throughout history, but that doesn't stop Christians in this country from trying to legislate their religion.
Yep. Agreed with all that.
Yeah. It's basically like a big push of religion and doctrine down damn near everybody's throat.
Yeah, it's tyranny.
Yeah, it is. And it's, well, I'm going to retract that because I don't know if that's completely correct. So, forget the last part I was going to say.
I'm from North Carolina. I've mentioned this before, but I'm from North Carolina. And in North Carolina, we're dealing with also not quite an abortion ban, but something that's largely considered a precursor to one. It's known as a Born Alive bill, which is a bill that talks about this myth of failed abortions and babies that are born alive. And the reason this ties into immigration policy is that it appears that North Carolina Republicans are going to try and let an anti-immigration bill die as a way to secure votes to override a veto, because North Carolina has SB 3, I'm looking at the exact letter right now, SB 359. I wanted to get it exactly right. And what that is it's a Born Alive bill, which is a bill that sort of tries to punish it. What it does is it attempts to emotionalize the conversation about abortion. And it conjures up images of like 9, like basically babies that are not yet born, and people and like heartless doctors murdering those babies.
Oh my God.
And it's bullshit. Is what it is.
I mean, just
like
born alive, my head is exploding right now. I can't get over this.
It is one of the dumbest things in the world, but the way it's going in North Carolina is it appears that an anti-immigration bill is either going to die or they're going to keep pushing it back until it's basically the election. And in exchange, they're going to try to get Democrats to agree to vote with them to override a veto on SB 379. SB 359.
I hate it when they do that shit. That is just so dirty.
I'm from North Carolina. Greensboro is where I was born, in Fayetteville, but Greensboro is where I went to college. So I paid a whole lot of attention to North Carolina politics. I have called out North Carolina politicians, and I'm followed by a whole bunch of North Carolina politicians on Twitter, which is really neat.
Luciano, do you know where Gastonia is?
Yeah.
That's where I live.
Oh, nice. You're another North Carolinian? There's actually a couple of North Carolinian atheistic Twitter and YouTube folks, so I'm not super surprised.
Yeah, well, right now I'm staying with my grandparents over the weekend. My living situation is complicated right now with my extremely devout Catholic mother. And so I'm staying with my grandparents over the weekend right now, and they're in Dallas.
Oh, nice.
Or I guess technically High Shoals, but yeah.
I've never been to Gastonia, but I know where it is. I have friends from around that area. Is Gastonia, is that near Greenville? Because I might be moving over there pretty soon.
It's right. It's. I live. Well, my mother's house is like. I want to say about a 5 to 10 minute drive from the Lowell line.
Nice.
So, kind of around that area.
Yeah. But yeah, the abortion stuff is really dumb, and women are going to die because of these sorts of policies, and people don't care. That's ultimately what's going on here. Lots of people want these policies to only have exemptions for rape or incest, and I appreciate that at the very least there are Republicans who care enough to make there be those exemptions. That's not enough, and that does shame and blame women who engage in consensual sex, which is, of course, to Christian men, one of the most important things in the world. Shaming women who engage in consensual, hopefully pleasurable sex is a really big deal. And
Hopefully.
that is, like, I'm an asexual person. I have had difficult ideas and thoughts about, like, sex and pleasure, but I've never been an asshole, and I've never wanted to, like, treat people who want to have sex like trash, because it's such a bad thing to do. And it's I wish that we lived in a country that was smarter and that didn't care about shaming women for daring to have sex.
Agreed.
I mean, hell, it's gonna. I mean, if this keeps going, it's gonna go back to coat hangers.
That's what they want.
It's sad to say, but it's true.
You know, I mean, it's okay. So we're talking about the party here that says banning things don't work, and the big example that they use is guns. So you can ban guns, but people are going to get guns, and you know, and they're like, we need to ban abortion to stop abortion.
It's almost as if they're ridiculous.
Logic, dude. No, you're not going to stop abortions. You're going to stop safe, regulated abortion.
Yeah.
The government that hates Big Brother wants there to be a Big Brother in every single abortion clinic. Every single OBGYN, there's a Big Brother there making sure that that doctor doesn't dare perform an abortion on even one child who's been raped.
Yeah, and if they do, they get 99 years in prison. What the?
Yeah. Or like one of the states where I can't remember which state it is, but you know, the state that it's now saying, or if it hasn't said it, definitely has said that it's threatening it, that if a woman gets an abortion, then she gets the death penalty. I think that was New York. I think of it.
It wasn't New York. New York has enshrined abortion.
I'm pretty sure that's Alabama you're thinking of.
Oh, it was? Okay. Well.
Yeah. Kind of the wrong side of the country there, bud.
Yeah, wrong side of the country, but...
Damn it, Evans.
Yeah. Row tie.
Well, actually, Evans and Godless Engineer as well.
That's right. I only remember, like, the most that I ever engaged with Godless Engineer and that crew was, like, back when they were in, I think it was Texas. I might be wrong. They might have never been in Texas. I always, like, remembered them being in Texas, then all of a sudden they're in Alabama. So I don't know.
They were for Faithless Forum, not this last one, but the year before.
Yeah. Oh, wait, where was the one this year? I thought there was one
it was in Texas.
Yeah.
It's always in Texas. But, yeah, it's almost as if they don't give a shit about actual people in the country. They care more about the corporations that, oddly enough, give them big donations. So we can't regulate the people that give us the big donations, but we can regulate everyone's uterus.
This is basically the political equivalent of, I can't control my audience.
Yeah, isn't it, though? It's ridiculous. There's no logic in it whatsoever. It's just a ploy. It's propaganda.
Also, Bible Belt atheist, I was also that person once, and I was Catholic, so I was very anti-choice. I was a dick, and then I realized that's a bad position, and that's a morally wrong position. Should probably change that.
Yeah,
I definitely was never at a point where I supported the death penalty for that, but
Same.
definitely jail time at least.
Yeah, I mean, even
Yeah,
Pat
well,
Robertson is doing, oh my God, that's too much.
Yeah.
Some people have said that Pat Robertson is worried because he doesn't think that that would actually win in the Supreme Court. By the way, the Alabama bill would absolutely not win in the Supreme Court. Even now, it's very unlikely that like this bill, at the very least, it'll be softened. It won't be kept the way that it is. But that is not the thing that people should be focusing on. And every time I hear people be like, oh, they only want it to go to the court, it's still going to be like in effect if they get the way they want.
Yeah. Good point. Well, it's horrible, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Tommy Lauren, who is a bad person and is wrong like 97% of the time, she is actually almost consistently fairly pro-choice, and she has a long track record of this. A lot of people know that this is like the one issue she agrees with liberals on, but it's more that she's like a small government person, and that's her reason for having this position. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy that she's right on this one thing. I'm like, you know what? Good for you being right now. For 5 minutes.
As much as I hate to agree with her, yay for that, but also yay for consistency, I guess.
Congratulations on being the one consistent conservative.
Pretty much.
I never thought I'd say this, but maybe you should be president. At the very least, it's better than what we have right now.
Oh, a shoe with dog shit in it would be better. Like, really?
Most cats would be better presidents than Donald Trump.
Yeah, at least they wouldn't care enough to, like, tweet. They can't
A mountain
tweet.
lion with rabies would be a better president.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
They'd be chasing the Twitter bird rather than actually using it to send messages.
I mean, at the very least, they wouldn't be buddying it up with the dictator who made fun of a presidential candidate, and the president just sort of went along with that. That's a weird thing. Like, as a historian, this is like a really weird thing for me to think of. Like, there was a dictator who went after someone running for president, and the president agreed with that dictator. That's just a weird scenario.
But he didn't use the word idiot or something.
He used a low IQ individual.
Yeah, individual instead of idiot. Oh, wow, what a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do need a National Bun Bun Day. We do.
Hashtag bun bun for Snarky in the chat, everybody.
Yeah!
Eventually,
well,
we'll
Bible
change
Belt, I'm
Maddie's
very
mind.
interested in your video. Sorry, I just want to say, Bible Belt, as someone who was pro-life, not that pro-life, but as someone who was that way for like a while, I was an atheist before I became pro-choice. I'm interested in seeing your video. I'll be sure to share it when it goes live.
Oh yeah. Depending on how long it is, I might premiere it, but I'm not sure how long it's going to be. So
That's going to be one hell of a video right there. And that's something that I really can't relate to because I've always been pro-choice. And I've pretty much always been a libtard, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's why I need bun buns.
I haven't done like a full 180. I'm still not like, I'm further to the left than most YouTube atheists that I know of, but there's some issues that I'm just like, I don't disagree with conservatives on this. Nothing important. And like, I was moderately pro-life. I was never the sort of person who's like, yeah, rape victims should have to give birth to their rapist babies. That was never me. But I was just like, yeah, there should be like legislation that controls and restricts abortion, which is not my position anymore. I think that abortion should be completely legal all 9 months, which is a pretty that's a pretty far left idea, even in pro-choice spaces. And I'm willing to admit that. I have no problem talking about that if people ever want to have that conversation.
Yeah, that is an unusual position. And I would like to see your political compass sometime because I'm willing to bet you I'm further left than you.
Probably, but like one of the only issues that I am like, and I've talked about this, I don't think we should abolish the death penalty, which is a hyper-conservative, I think it should be reformed significantly. And I've talked about this with like Wonder Lady and other folks. but I don't think it should be abolished 100%, which always surprises people. That's it. That's my one conservative position right there.
We're gonna fight. We're gonna fight.
I figured you'd have been right there with me saying it should be just gone completely.
I think it should be gone in like 99.9% of cases. I spoke about this. Wonder Lady and I had a live stream where we talked about this. But my basic position is that like the only people who should be executed are people who actively led genocides. So that's like an extreme hyper minority. Those are some of the worst people on earth.
You know what? I can agree with that. I would actually go so far as to people like Jeffrey Dahmer, or something like that.
Yeah,
I might be like, you know what, fry on this. Yeah.
But that's my position, and that's part of the reason why I'm just like I'm willing to talk about this, because I feel like most people would, at the very least, even if they don't agree with me, they're like, I can understand that point of view at the very least. Yeah. Like, that's not exactly a controversial position to hold once I explain it.
Yeah, once you explain it. But for me, like for the most part, I am against the death penalty, mainly because it's even if there's a small chance that we put an innocent person to death, I don't want to take it.
I understand that point of view, and I don't disagree with that. That's part of the reason why I'm just like, if the argument is between keeping the death penalty around as it is right now or abolishing it, I'll be the first person to sign up to abolish it.
Oh, here's the guns.
Yeah, which is ironic considering what we're talking about.
Yeah. I do dislike the methods that we use, simply because access, for one, because a lot of the pharmaceutical companies want to have jack shit to do with it. And the way it's administered is just atrocious. I don't think that it's very humane the way we do it even now. I mean, a bullet would be cheaper and more humane, in my opinion, which I'm probably in the minority with that. But, I mean, to be completely conscious and aware and not be able to move or tell anybody that you're in excruciating pain is a horrible way to die. It might look good to everybody that's watching it, but for the person who's dying, it's absolutely horrible. So I think we need to do something in regard to that too.
Yeah.
Don't know what.
Yeah, and I mean the chemical that they use, some sort of potassium something, I can't remember the scientific name for it, but the chemical that they use for the death penalty is like, I want to say it's somewhere around 20 grand per injection.
Yeah, it's like ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, would you rather, after Snarky explained it, yeah, I agree. Would you rather spend 20 grand on a shot, which that's basically what it is, it's just a shot to give somebody, 20 grand on a shot, or 50 cents on a bullet?
I think it would be neat to have like a death penalty discussion, especially because I'm far from the only atheist who isn't anti-death penalty. I'm definitely a minority. I know of a handful of folks. When I talk about this, I know a handful of folks who don't make videos talk about it, and they're like, yeah, we agree with that basic position, especially once I clarify it, because like if I'm just like, I don't think the death penalty should be abolished, that's obviously an edgy opinion. I would agree with most people who are like, that's probably the wrong take. I'd be like, yeah, you aren't wrong.
Luciano the Edgelord.
I'm a queer Latino. I don't think I have what it takes to be like an edgelord or something.
Well, you're pro death penalty. You've got the edge.
All right, everybody. We are about 15 minutes over, so I think we're gonna end it there. Check out the link I just posted in the chat. That's if it's gonna post, like I told it.
I'm waiting for it too. There it is.
Bated breath. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah. Head over to that video. That's Scientist Mel talking about the abortion debate. But instead of watching it all the way through, hit watch later, because in about 44 minutes, Mrs. Snarky is going to be live on Maddie's channel, Objectively Subjective, which is weird to say, by the way.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Couldn't
Tell me
pick
about
an easier name, just saying.
Yeah, hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. Hope you're listening there, Maddie. Something easier would have been,
Nice.
at least for the tongue twister would have been nice. But if everybody could go through, saying where they can find you on YouTube, Twitter, all that fun business, Patreon.
I just want to point out that Maddie just hopped in to say it's not hard to say.
It is hard to say.
It is hard to say. Also,
Objectively
I'm ESL, so I'm kind of biased, but like it is hard to say. So let's be real. We're atheists. We're known for being brutally honest.
Brutal. At least brutal, right? We're edgelords, remember?
That's right, all of us.
Trash.
Yeah.
Also, make sure to like the stream, y'all.
Like and share,
Definitely.
fam.
Yes. Like and share, definitely. But yeah, if we could all go back through, talking about our social medias, and ladies first, Snarky.
Well, I'm on the Twitters at Mrs. Snarky, and I'm on the YouTubes at Mrs. Snarky. I don't know what else to say.
All right, BBA, the youngest prince in the group.
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook is just the Bible Belt Atheist. Instagram is at the BB Atheist, and it's the same on Twitter. Damn nap. And then I'm on YouTube as well for obviously the Bible Belt Atheist. And then I'll be talking about abortion this Sunday. So
Right
let's
on.
go.
And Luciano.
Hey fam, I'm Luciano. I talk and write about so many different things, but I run Luciano's Logic. I am now 2 subscribers away from 400, so if folks want to help me out, I would deeply appreciate that. This is the closest I've ever been, and I've been there this entire week. It's greatly annoyed me. I made a video today where I talked about asexuality and pride. Tomorrow's the beginning of Pride Month, which runs all of June, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing a live stream where I talk about the ace spectrum, and I talk about different terms that asexuals use, like demisexual, gray sexual, all that fun stuff. But yeah. Oh, also I have a Twitter, and I have a Patreon. If y'all want to help me out on Patreon, I would really appreciate that. Everything is either Luciano Writes or Luciano's Logic. And yeah, that's me.
Right on. And Snarky, if you could post the link to Objectively Subjective's live stream later in about 40 minutes, because it's kind of disappeared in the chat.
Oh, okay. Get
Yeah.
that going again.
It's still there, but I'm sure people don't want to, scroll up.
Scrolling up is difficult.
That takes work, and as the demon lord of sloth, I approve any message that involves not doing work.
Except for someone else.
I was very, very lazy in my typing of it. I just put sub. You're welcome.
This gets my seal of approval. Also, my name's almost Lucifer. Luciano, there are lots of Christians who have made fun of me for that.
Aww. Well, you are the Prince of Light and the Morning Star, so that's not that's a compliment, damn it.
Actually, Luciano is Belphegor, which is the Prince of Sloth. You are thinking yourself.
Yeah, Lucifer. Yeah.
I like the little positive hesitation right there. You're like, wait, give me a second to check.
I check my work.
But did you show it? You didn't show it, did you? Now we're failing.
I do what I want.
We're failing English and math now.
Hell yes, those were my worst subjects.
Yay!
I am the Prince of Gluttony. I don't really care to show my work. I just,
You
want
just
to
eat it. Just eat it.
I will eat the work like a dog eating homework.
Hi,
Hopefully
Laura.
that really
It's
makes
nice
any
to see you. Hope you can join us next month.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely look forward to Laura Lulu, hopefully coming in next month. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Hopefully you all enjoyed the live stream. I know I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely leave it a like. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my lovely guest channels because they put a hell of a lot of work into their channels and they deserve the appreciation, right? So, yeah, that'll do it. See you all next time.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
See y'all.